let's move on to our headlines. Number one, Donald Trump is pushing for schools to be reopened in the fall. The media and Democrats, of course, are saying that Trump is trying to kill our kids. And that's what Jennifer Rubin, the Washington Post's major scare quotes here, conservative op-ed writer, said on Twitter that Donald Trump wants to kill your kids. Verbatim, that's what she said, because he wants to reopen schools. And yet the interesting thing is that none of the people, so far as I can tell, who now insist on schools being closed for COVID, insisted on the same during flu season. The flu, even with a vaccine, is more deadly to kids than COVID. But nobody ever says close the schools during flu season. Every once in a while, you hear about an individual school shutting down for a few days because of a really bad outbreak in that locality. But you never have anything like a nationwide shutdown during flu season. Why? On one hand, you have a contagious disease that rarely causes serious complications or death in children, but sometimes does. On the other hand, you have a contagious disease that even more rarely causes serious complications or death in children, but in even more rare circumstances sometimes does. Why would we shut down schools for the latter, but not the former? It makes no sense. Unless, of course, shutting down schools has nothing to do with health and is more about politics and narrative, which obviously is the case here. Number two, a politician in Oregon received a deeply disturbing racist letter last week. It went viral on Facebook. It was covered by the news media. Really rough stuff in this letter, racist letter. The only problem is that the politician, Jonathan Lopez, wrote it himself. Shocker of all shockers. The twist ending no one saw coming. So after a few days, he admitted, yeah, he wrote it himself. Just for fun, let's read the letter that Lopez's alter ego sent to himself. The letter says, Mr. Lopez, you're not welcome here and will never be anything in this community or state. Don't waste your time trying to become anything in this country. We will make sure you never win and your family suffers along with all the other effing Mexicans in the area. Sincerely, America. Sincerely, America. Once again, the hoaxers are just having a lot of trouble coming up with a believable script for their imaginary racists. Which just shows you, like we talk about all the time, you know, if this is such a racist country, why are people constantly having to invent these instances of racism? But even more than that, not just that it's being invented, but if it's such a racist country, like you would think that someone like Jonathan Lopez would have encountered racism in the past, and so he could write a believable script of what a racist would say to him. But he's not. He's going based on what he sees in the movies and TV shows. And so that finally came. Speaking of implausible events, by the way, while we're on the subject of dubious hate crimes, there was a very strange hate crime incident reported a few weeks ago that you may have heard about a few weeks ago. You probably haven't heard about in the last 2 weeks because, strangely enough, it disappeared from the headlines. But here's the report that ABC did on the story back on June 26th. Watch this.
While waiting for a green light, this is where Althea Bernstein says 4 white men yelled a racial slur at her before attacking her and setting her on fire with lighter fluid. Michael Johnson with the Boys and Girls Club says he can't think of a more obvious instance of a hate crime.
And so she has burns to her face, burns to her neck.
Johnson, speaking on behalf of the Bernstein family, says Althea is physically doing well today.
I think her mom and her dad is concerned about, her mental well-being and the scars that's on her.
Bernstein told Madison 365 Wednesday that the attack happened early Wednesday morning at around 1. She says she was at the intersection when 4 white men in floral shirts yelled the N-word, sprayed her with lighter fluid, and then threw a lit lighter at her.
And here's a young lady who was minding her own business, and somebody decided and tried to set her on fire. And it's unacceptable.
Madison police say they are investigating this as a hate crime. Johnson says this is an escalation of racial tensions felt all across the country.
Somebody tried to cause bodily harm to somebody because of the color of their skin. And, all of these things that's happened across our country and right here in our backyard, it's just unacceptable. And where's the respect for humanity?
Okay, and here are the burns that she allegedly suffered from having her face set on fire. You see it there. So she says she was at a red light, 1 a.m. A roving band of racists in Hawaiian shirts ran up with lighter fluid and a match, and a lighter rather, sprayed the lighter fluid in her face, then threw a lighter into the car, a lighter that stayed lit as it was thrown somehow. So it must have been one of those old-fashioned ones that people use in the movies. And then her face was set on fire. Oddly, her hair was not damaged, though. Her face was on fire. Her hair didn't catch somehow. And then the racist disappeared. To this point, we have seen no video of this, even though it happened in an intersection in the city. There's no video, no surveillance video that we've seen. There are no other witnesses of this. There's a gang of murderous, flame-wielding, Hawaiian-shirted racists walking through the street, apparently not noticed by anyone else. And even though they're patrolling the streets, lighting women on fire, nobody else reported a violent encounter with them or any other kind of encounter. And those injuries, is that what your face looks like after being set on fire? I don't know. My face has never been set on fire, but is that, those are very strange burn marks considering what she claims happened. And also, where is the lighter that they threw? Shouldn't she have that because they threw it? And she should have it and there are prints on it, but she never mentioned having the lighter, or she never showed a picture of that. And then what about damage to her car? If she's on fire in her car, there should at least be some fire damage around, around maybe the door frame, maybe on the roof of the car. But we never saw a picture of that either. And here's another strange thing. There was arson going on that night, confirmed arson. Leftist rioters were setting buildings on fire in the city. And that was on the same night that this supposedly happened. So she comes home with mysterious burn marks the same night that arsonists are running through the street. And she tells a story about flame-throwing racists who nobody else ever saw and who apparently evaded detection by every video camera in the city. Number 3, Campus Reform did one of those classic dumb people on the street videos, this time asking mostly college-aged kids, it looks like, questions about July 4th and why we celebrated. And no surprise, a bunch of people didn't know a damn thing about July 4th or why we celebrated or about American history. But the really disturbing part of the video is this.
So we're actually two interesting people to talk to. We're teachers. Okay. So I was a 7th grade civics teacher, government teacher, and she is an elementary school teacher, 4th grade, 2nd grade elementary school teacher.
What year did we get our independence?
17-something. I personally know firsthand that we are not getting taught, specifically in social studies, the history that we need to know.
I actually don't teach what's in our curriculum. I'm teaching children social studies that's not in our curriculum, teaching them things about how to be an anti-racist. Instead of teaching those same 3 famous Black people that we continue to teach, I taught them about protesting. I taught them about Black Lives Matter. I taught them about things that are happening currently so that they could make those connections. And when they see it on the news, they're informed. They're not ignoring the facts of our world right now. They're facts that we're actually a racist country.
Okay, so those are the people that are teaching our kids, which puts this part of the video into perspective.
So with the 4th of July coming up, we're going to ask a couple questions. My first question for you guys is, what does the 4th of July commemorate?
Day we declared independence from Great Britain.
Basically America's birthday, right?
I think independence.
What year did we declare our independence?
I'm gonna be real with you, I don't know.
1967, I'll say.
Close, a little off.
I don't know, 1859.
1964.
I'm going to give you a try. What do you think? What year did we get our independence?
1970 something, 74, something like that.
1979.
Like the 1800s.
1864.
18. Yes, like 18.
19 is farther back.
Like 18.
It's further back.
From the 1800s. Oh.
1777.
Super close.
76.
Yes, that's a shocker. It's impossible to figure out how that could happen. Who could connect these dots? I don't know. You've got teachers, one of whom teaches civics, teaches government, doesn't know the date of our independence somehow. And then another one who confesses that she doesn't even follow curriculum. All she does is teach about why racism is bad. And then you've got a bunch of kids who are absolute morons and know nothing about this country or its history. How could that happen? I don't get it. But let's continue sending our kids to public school anyway. Sounds like a great plan. Number 4, the ACLU is calling attention to the case of Wesley Perkey, who's a 68-year-old man with Alzheimer's and other mental illnesses, who's also on death row and scheduled to be executed in a week. I think on July 15th, he's going to be executed. The ACLU says this is a terrible injustice. The media agrees. Newsweek has a long article about poor old Wesley, just a nice old man, going to be killed by the state. Poor guy, right? But the interesting thing is that Newsweek has this entire article talking about the poor old man and how he's going to be executed, and he doesn't understand why. But throughout the entire article, they never mention what he did to land on death row in the first place. It's not until you get to the very bottom in a bracketed editor's note where it happens to mention what the old man did to land himself on death row. I'll tell you what he did. He bludgeoned an 80-year-old paralytic woman to death with a hammer, and he kidnapped, raped, murdered, and dismembered a teenage girl. So this is a guy who did the worst thing imaginable and followed it up with the other worst thing imaginable. He is, Alzheimer's or not, a horrifically evil monster unfit for human society. And I think that point is relevant. I think in a civilized society, this should be quite simple. You rape and murder a child, you die. You bludgeon an old woman to death, you die. That's all. There is no extenuating circumstances that should change the consequence of that action. There are some things a person can do that forfeit their right to be a part of human society in any capacity, even in prison. And this is one of those things. And in fact, he did 2 of those kinds of things. And the great thing is, it's not a high bar to get over, right? Don't rape and murder and dismember people. Don't bludgeon old women to death. If you can't manage to get over that bar, if that's too high a standard for you as a person, then you just shouldn't be living anymore. And it is an undue burden on society to keep you alive and house you and shelter you and feed you. Nobody should have that responsibility for you. You have made it clear you do not want to be a part of society anymore, and you should be simply given your wish. I think that the ACLU says that's not justice. I think that's like the very definition of justice, if you ask me. Number 5, finally, the Green Party of Delaware tweeted this. I don't know what it is or why it is or anything, but I know that it is anyway, and here it is. It's a picture of a woman embracing a dolphin, and the caption says, "Their dolphin human baby is the future of intelligent life on Earth, and it's the only way we'll let dolphins in some form survive." This is from the verified account of the Green Party of Delaware, which granted, it's the Green Party and it's Delaware, so there's probably 3 members, but still, it appears that the Green Party, at least in Delaware, is now advocating for a very specific form of bestiality, which is maybe notable. I have to say, though, I object on moral grounds and also on every other ground. And for the record, I object not just on the ground, but in the sea too. But I also have to admit that a dolphin-human hybrid baby would certainly give your life porpoise. So I had to do it. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I just said I won't apologize. I will not apologize, especially for a well-timed bestiality pun. I just won't. That I won't apologize for. This video is sponsored by BlinkSale, the revolutionary invoicing software for contractors and small businesses. Spend less time billing and more time making bank with BlinkSale. Get a free trial at the link in the video description.